Hi, my name is David Sherman-Presser. I am the founder of a company called Structure Creation Consulting, and our focus is to help uh, creators, athletes, trainers, podcasters, anyone that's in the health and fitness space build a business on YouTube. I worked at YouTube for almost 7 years. I was a product marketer. I had a team of product marketers. And for about 7 years there, I worked on monetization products. I worked on every monetization product on YouTube, with the exception of our YouTube shopping products. So I tell folks there's few people in the world that know as much about making money on YouTube as I do. And I'm excited to be in the health and fitness space because this is my passion and help people better understand how to use YouTube.
David, we've been chatting offline, and it's just such a pleasure to meet you and know you, and you've just been so wonderful. So the focus of today, I want to make sure we get right in for the audience, which is fit pros, primarily personal trainers, health and wellness coaches. Everybody wants to be on YouTube. And as you said, the number one podcasting platform too, which a lot of
Yeah.
people don't know.
Yep.
So let's dive into, especially in your expertise, what is the first thing that a health and wellness professional, and specifically anybody, personal trainers, group X, whatever, can do to begin their journey into monetization and to build their brand on YouTube?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, if you're thinking about building a brand on YouTube or a digital business, so I'm a marketing guy, I've been in marketing for 15 years. The first thing I would say is to have a very clear understanding of what your value proposition is. So, understand, what your unique skill set is, what your benefit is to clients, potential customers, and how you're differentiated from all of the other trainers or fitness professionals in the space. So, I think it's very important. YouTube is a very crowded space. Social media is a very crowded space. Health and fitness, there's a lot of fantastic trainers. So having a clear perspective on what unique offering you bring to the table and what your benefits are to clients, I would say is the starting point before you even think about getting on YouTube. I mean, the second thing I would say is at YouTube, we talk about this exercise or idea of niching down. And so, as I mentioned, YouTube is a very crowded space. There are, I don't know the exact number, millions of channels on YouTube, probably hundreds of millions. And, you know, being, as we say in marketing, being everything to everybody is not a strategic direction. And so, really understanding if you are, let's say, if you have a weightlifting background or let's say a bodybuilding background, if there are a lot of other trainers that offer a similar experience, how can you niche down on YouTube, or how can you think about what other skill sets do you have that allow you to appeal to a certain set of customers that no one else can appeal to? So, I tell this story. This is, a little bit of I'll do a abbreviated version of the story, but I have a friend. She is um, she's a working professional, but she wants to be a creator and an influencer. And she came to me and she said, David, I want to be a tennis influencer or tennis creator on YouTube. Her name is Yo-Yo. I said, Yo-Yo, there are hundreds of thousands of tennis creators, and you're not even that good at tennis. You cannot go out and be a successful tennis creator. It's too competitive. We need to niche down. So she said, okay, I want to be tennis plus fashion. And I said, Yo-Yo, this is moving in the right direction, but we still need to niche down because there's lots of tennis fashion creators. And where we landed was Yo-Yo has a really fantastic story where she has twin boys that are a little older than my daughter, and she used tennis postpartum to get back in shape and feel really good about her health. And so now she has a channel that is tennis fashion and talking about being a mom and postpartum exercise. That's a space that only Yo-Yo can tell and Yo-Yo can own. And so that's when I talk about niching down, finding what you can pair your experience with kind of your unique story.
That makes a lot of sense. I feel like that's an area a lot of fitness professionals struggle with because, in my experience on YouTube, fitness is gigantic
Yes.
on YouTube. I mean,
Yeah.
there's like I don't, you would know this, but it seems like it's one of the more popular genres, if you will, topics
Yeah.
on there. Is that the case technically with it?
It's certainly a very popular genre. When we talk about it, like the biggest verticals or genres on YouTube, music is number one, gaming is number two. But fitness certainly would fall, I would say, in the top 10. Some
Okay.
other big ones, fashion and beauty is a big category, lifestyle and vlogging, but health and fitness, especially with how much is happening in the longevity space, how much people are talking about it. It's certainly a very popular vertical and genre on YouTube.
So how much of niching down and let's say you get to where you want to be involves, well, let's get into, I think this is a good point to talk about the algorithm and how much of it is like someone may say, David, yes, this sounds great. Niching down, is this going to guarantee I'm going to have a huge channel because I've niched down and I got exactly what I wanted to do?
Yeah, so I would say the answer is no, but I would also say to build a six or even potentially seven-figure revenue business on YouTube, you don't need a huge channel. There's a really great article or essay online called "A Thousand True Fans." I would highly recommend everyone go and read that. And the idea here is if you have the name of the game is really depth versus breadth. So you want to build a very loyal, engaged community, and if you can have a following of 1,000 people that are willing to pay you $10 a month, that right there is a six-figure business. So, oftentimes the mistake that I see people make is they look at Mr. Beast, they look at Jeff Nipper, they look at Mike Israetel, these people that have millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of subscribers, and they try to chase kind of that strategy and that format. And it's really like when I was at YouTube, I worked with creators that had less than 100,000 subscribers that were in the, 20 to 50,000 range, and they were making $500,000 on YouTube. And it's really about them understanding who their audience is, how they serve them and build community and depth of connection with that audience, and then understanding how to monetize them. And YouTube has 10 monetization products. So it's being, clear on who your audience is and building community and then understanding which monetization tools or products to turn on.
Fantastic. No, it's great. What about number two out of the three that you were telling me a little bit about before?
Yeah. So, YouTube on its face is a very large platform. At its core, it's a very simple platform. So I tell people there's really only two metrics that you need to focus on to grow your channel, and there is a formula for retention. So basically, it is click-through rate is very important. So, YouTube is a click and watch platform. Your thumbnail and title, your packaging. I see lots of bad thumbnails on YouTube, and I explain it like this: you would never create a product with bad packaging. If your thumbnail and title are not good on YouTube and you don't have an intentional strategy with them, then your packaging is not good and people don't click and don't watch. So you want people to click your videos and then you want to retain them. And so there is a metric on YouTube called average view duration. YouTube mostly wants to know when you click on a video, how much of it do you watch or what percentage do you watch? If you watch 5% of that video and then you say, oh, this is boring, I'm going to go leave. YouTube says this is a bad video and they downrank it in their search and discovery system. If you watch 80 or 90%, they say this is a quality signal and they uprank it. This is like really what it boils down to. You get people to click and you get them to watch. And then, the insider baseball here is there is a formula for retention. People call it different things. I call it the four-part formula, which means any video you make, whether it's a YouTube short or a long form video or live stream, you think about in four separate chunks. You have your hook, your storytelling, your re-engagement and back half. So you begin videos with kind of what's the basically a trailer for what's going to happen for the rest of the video, the most kind of compelling dynamic parts. Then you begin storytelling, you build characters, stakes, why should people care? Then, it's unfortunate people have no attention spans these days. You need to do some things as they get into it to re-engage them and kind of accelerate the storylines there. And then YouTube will tell you once you get someone to roughly 50% of a video, it's kind of like the sunk cost effect. They're bought in and they'll watch to the end. But you need to do everything you can within hooking, storytelling, and re-engagement tactics to drive people to 50% of your video.
So let's talk about the thumbnail. What makes a really good thumbnail? Like, what's the components of it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The first thing I would tell people, less is more with thumbnails. Um, I am working with some clients who, they are in the weightlifting, bodybuilding space. They used to put 10 bodybuilders in a thumbnail, and many people watch YouTube on their phones. Thumbnails, might be this big. All 10 of those people literally look like ants, and so thumbnails are typically viewed in kind of it's a very small package. So you want to hero up on, an individual or a single focal point because that's going to be um, much more easy to kind of like see and kind of engage people than, to clutter your thumbnail. So that's the first thing, like less is more. Bright colors. You want to create ideally what I would call the curiosity gap. So if someone sees your thumbnail, and Mr. Beast does this fantastically well, he has videos of him about to be eaten by a lion, and you're like, is he really about to be eaten by a lion? Like, I have to click on this video and I have to watch it, or him, playing Ronaldo in soccer, and like you really want to see what's going to happen. So you create a curiosity gap, you create tension, there's storytelling, there's colors in the thumbnails, and then the other thing that YouTube will tell you is that faces and emotions drive clicks. So you will see a lot of top channels and a lot of big creators have, their faces in the thumbnail. They
Yeah.
typically have some type of emotion. I remind people like if, because people oftentimes, again, they look at a Mr. Beast, they look at Ryan Trahan with kind of the more photoshopped and maybe cartoony expressions. Like if that's not your brand, that's not the direction that I recommend you go in. But there are ways to kind of bring in your face, your emotions, that probably makes sense for your brand. So yeah, just to kind of recap, because I know there was a lot of that. It's like less is more. You want to create a curiosity gap, you want storytelling and bright colors. And then ideally you're using kind of like faces and emotions to draw people into the content.
What's interesting, what resonated me was kind of the faces part. And
Yeah.
sometimes, like, I'll look at different thumbnails and I go, that face just feels so fake to me. Like they're
Yeah.
just putting it on. I struggle with that with my YouTube. It's going decently, but it's like, what's the advice for someone who's like, I don't really want to cross that threshold of like making up stuff that's not me, you know?
Yeah, it's a great point. So there's this concept called the uncanny valley, which is like when you kind of Photoshop a face, or if we watch like a movie and there's CGI and the CGI doesn't look right, our brain goes like, that's not right, and it's kind of off-putting to us. So yeah, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, maybe daring with some of these answers, but like it goes back to what's your value proposition? Like, what do you want to be known for? What is your brand? What is your benefit to people? And if you are someone, I think about, so one of the clients I'm working with is the Olympia. Olympia is the premier bodybuilding competition in the world. There's only 19 of the, I think it's almost 70-year history of Olympia. There's only been 19 Olympia winners. Like it is, a very coveted, marker. I would never recommend to Olympia let's go be kind of like very cartoony or child focused. Like Olympia is a, prestige premier brand. And so it's really understanding what's your brand and what do you want to be known for? What's your aesthetic? And kind of matching that. Like, yes, there are ways to take best practices and you could put your face on a thumbnail and still be serious and kind of like high quality, and not kind of go into that uncanny valley, like cartoony, aesthetic.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Appreciate that. What about number three?
Yeah, I mean, number three. So, we've talked about thumbnails, we've talked about retention, we've talked about some value proposition work. I would really remind people that like YouTube, one of the reasons I think all of fitness trainers and fitness professionals should do fantastically well on YouTube is because YouTube is like the gym. YouTube is about consistency and, it is reps, sets, consistency, discipline. It's showing up, doing the thing and doing it over a long period of time. It's just like, I'm a weightlifting guy. I know you're an exercise guy. Like that's what it is. When you know what works, it's not like, okay, let's find something else. Let's continue to search for new formulas, new best practices. Like this is the roadmap. This is, if we're going to go to the gym and build, boulder shoulders, some massive deltoids, like we got to hit front, mid, rear. We got to do, some hypertrophy, some, some bulking stuff. Like we got to do that and we have to do it over a long period of time. And so that's, I think, kind of the key to YouTube is like, yes, we need to know the best practices, which we covered. You need to have a value prop, but then ideally you are doing this, every single week. There's multiple content formats on YouTube. There's YouTube Shorts, there's long form, there's live stream, there's also vertical live if you want to get into that. But ideally, you are using two of those formats, shorts and long form, and you're posting at least once a week.
Yeah, I was going to get into, yeah, I wanted to ideal, like the ideal, I guess you could say volume and the
Yes.
frequency. It is, right? Sounds very exercisey.
Yeah, exactly.
Talking about it for that. So you're saying once a week minimum. Is that a minimum number, or would you say what's kind of the prescription?
Yeah. So, everyone asks this of YouTube, and YouTube's response is, it is all channel dependent and it's based on what your strategy is, what your bandwidth is, and kind of like what your audience expects. There was a time where people thought, and potentially this is the way the platform worked, back in the day, because again, YouTube is 20 years old, where there was a lot of daily uploading and vlogging. And so people thought they needed to upload every day. I think the world we are in now on YouTube is a quality over quantity game. You look at top creators, the biggest creators in some cases are only uploading once a month. And like, they are ones that, they've been on the platform for a long time. They know exactly what they're doing. And also in some cases they spend $1 million a video, which is not the reality for pretty much any of us.
Yeah, yeah.
But I would say once a week is a fantastic starting point for one YouTube short a week, one long form video a week. If you want to increase frequency on shorts, that's the place to do it because the way you should think about, short form and long form is short form is driving what I would call top of funnel, new audience and discoverability. And then ideally a percentage of those people are coming to your main channel and watching your long form content and building, affinity and depth of connection because that's really where you're going to monetize. If you are only a YouTube Shorts creator, it's going to be very hard to build, a loyal community and to monetize, which is again where TikTok really struggles. And you now see we're in a world TikTok is creating longer formats because they know that there are a lot of creators that get millions of views on TikTok and they do not translate to any money at
Right.
all. And so it's really hard to build that depth of connection in a 30 or 60-second format. Whereas, and we were just talking about this, Darian, you've done over what, 800
Eight
podcast
bucks.
episodes, which
Yeah,
is very impressive. If
yeah.
I'm sitting with Darian for 800 episodes and each of them are an hour long, that's 800 hours of time that I've spent with Darian. That's a great way to build connection on YouTube.
Yeah, most definitely. I kick myself sometimes. I just got on YouTube seriously like a year or two ago,
Okay.
and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have all this content that I just haven't had on there."
Yeah.
For all that. But I find it to be pretty satisfying to do the long form stuff. It's funny the
Yeah.
shorts. I feel like I get no enjoyment out of it. Honestly, I
Okay.
like doing it.
Why would you say that is?
I don't know. It just feels like it's not me.
Okay.
Or if I'm putting it out for a guest of my show, it just feels I like talking to people. It's like I enjoy the longer format, but I use both.
Yeah.
But I recognize that I feel like that's where I see a lot of the movement is in the longer form and people get into it. And I've recently started, which I actually just tripped into this, no lies, full transparency. Because I
Okay.
teach at 3 colleges, and a lot of my content is about how to basically um, get really unique information about the training business, how to up level your training business. And I
Okay.
realized I teach so many certified personal trainer courses. Why aren't I not uploading my YouTube videos to my students so they
Mm-hmm.
can watch? And the students love it. They actually watch the videos and
Yeah.
they talk to me about it. I'm like, what was I thinking? It's like I just started that literally. Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up with the internet. I grew up with YouTube, and this is just, this is what so many of us, and, I'm a millennial, Gen Z is, I guess they call them kind of like digital natives.
Yeah.
They really grew up with social media. I remember I'm not that old, but when I was a kid, there was VHS before DVD, and like, we didn't really have internet when I was, super young. And so, like, I remember as a teenager, as, online video and YouTube was growing. I mean, it was fantastic. It was accessible. It was easy to use. It was fast. You could get any content you want. And, now 20 years later, YouTube is on TV screens, it's
Yeah.
podcasts, it's streaming, it's gaming, it's mobile. So, yeah, it's the younger generation. I mean, everyone for the most part is on YouTube, but especially, younger generation, that is just what they are used to and is their main form of content consumption.
What do you think makes YouTube so special and unique out of all the platforms that are out there?
Yeah. So I think the main thing, well, I'll say two things. The main thing is the monetization element. So that is YouTube's secret sauce. 20, I guess it was probably 18 or 19 years ago, YouTube decided that they were going to have a revenue sharing program, which no other big platform can say. TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, they all have what they call creator funds, which is a pool of money. And it's typically, it sounds like a big number. They say we're going to pay $1 billion to, small businesses and creators because we love those people on on our platform. And that's mostly, Darian, and creators know this. This is mostly smoke and mirrors because as YouTube makes, or as Instagram and Facebook make more money, as TikTok makes more money, that $1 billion creator fund does not grow. And on YouTube, you know, every single monetization product on YouTube has a revenue sharing component. And so as creators grow and make more money and grow their business, YouTube pays them more money. And so YouTube's stat is that they paid out $70 billion to the creator economy in the last 3 years. So you're talking about 3 billion on, an Instagram or a TikTok versus 70 billion. It's not in the same universe. And so creators know that. And that's a really powerful thing. The second thing I would say is, and I know I've mentioned this a couple of times. So YouTube is 20 years old. They've had a long time to figure this stuff out. YouTube would say that they were responsible for building the creator economy, and the platform has come a long way. I remember when YouTube first started, there was no content ID. And so it was the Wild West with like taking music and taking, movies and things and putting on YouTube, which is like not good for anybody. So YouTube solved that. There was also a lot of clickbait and memes on the platform. There was, I don't know if you remember this Rickroll. Like you click on a video and you get Rickrolled and you're like, what is going on? I wanted to watch, how to build abs in, 60 seconds and now I'm getting Rickrolled. And so like YouTube solved that with retention and like retention became a quality signal. So I think YouTube has had many years to refine and optimize. Like, I mean, I have built products at YouTube. I've seen how the product building works. It is very methodical and people don't appreciate this. YouTube is making, potentially hundreds of changes every quarter to the platform and they're testing it and they're seeing what works for creators and viewers and advertisers and making the platform better. And, I started a YouTube in 2018. Like TikTok did not exist in 2018. YouTube Shorts didn't exist. So like all of these short form and like kind of other platforms are much newer to the game. And I think there's still a lot of areas for them to optimize and improve.
Can you talk a little bit about the monetization products? Because a lot of my colleagues who aren't on YouTube, they just probably understand maybe just the ads that they see
Yeah.
when just generally watching YouTube. Maybe run down a little bit of that just so better
Yeah.
understand.
Of course. So, and I think that's very common. A lot of creators that I talk to, they are focused on ads revenue and they're focused on brand deals. And so, the way I would think about it on YouTube is there's ads monetization. So, you're basically turning on ads on your content, you're running a pre-roll or a mid-roll, and YouTube does that for you and it's very seamless. There is this whole other bucket, which is kind of the area that I mainly focused on YouTube, which we would call fan funding. So things like channel memberships, super chat, super thanks. The team launched in December of last year YouTube Jewels and Gifts, which is kind of like a virtual currency in vertical live, so vertical live streaming in the Shorts feed. And the great thing about these products is that unlike ads, which are dependent on how many views you're getting and what your CPM, like your ad rate is, so you need lots and lots of views to make meaningful revenue with ads. This is where the 1,000 true fans that I mentioned earlier, if you have a membership product, which is basically like a Patreon on YouTube, you can say, hey, I'm going to offer, we'll workshop. I'll give you an idea, Darian.
Okay.
Let's say you're doing a a podcast episode every week on YouTube. You could say, hey, for my paying members, maybe it's $5, maybe it's $10, you're going to get, one behind the scenes episode every week, or you're going to get an opportunity to do a Q&A with me every week. And if you get, again, 1,000 people of your however many subscribers to pay you $5 or $10 a month, that is a 5 or 6 figure revenue business on YouTube right out of the gate. And so memberships that's oftentimes what I do with clients. We're improving the foundation, but then we are designing, launching, and growing their membership product. So that's a really important tool that I would think everyone should look into. Some other monetization tools. I remember I mentioned supers, so super chat, super thanks. These are within either live stream or on your long form videos. People can pay money to get their comments highlighted so they can be recognized by a creator, they can get their questions answered, they can show financial support. So that's a kind of a whole nother revenue stream. Um, and then YouTube is doing some things in the affiliate space, shopping, kind of brand connect, to help creators get some more of those brand deals directly through the platform and also sell products. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways to monetize. And if you're just focused on, you know, ads revenue, you're leaving a lot of money on the table, especially if you have a very loyal community that loves you and wants to support you.
And that's a great rundown. I really appreciate that there. What do you think is, I know you spend so much time there. What's the future of YouTube? Like speculation in your mind.
That is a very hard question. I'll say three things about the future of YouTube. So YouTube right now is more popular than Netflix on connected TVs. I think the data at this point is YouTube's watch time on connected TVs is almost double that of Netflix. So everyone thinks, Netflix is the dominant streamer. And I joke about this with people. When you listen to a Netflix earnings call, all they do is talk about YouTube. Um, and this is very intentional. YouTube for many years through, their YouTube TV product, their sports partnerships,
Mhm.
there's been a lot of product building on kind of what they call living room surfaces. This is very intentional. And so YouTube continuing to grow on TV and be seen as television. Like the younger generation, I understand that when I turn on TV, there's like broadcasts and cable, and then you turn on YouTube, which is streaming stuff. The younger generation doesn't make that distinction. YouTube is TV for them. And so YouTube is going to continue to build there, grow there. And I mean, they even, have been signaling this where they are pitching Neil Mohan wants YouTube creators to be eligible for Emmys, which are like you would basically have, creator shows that are on YouTube that basically are in the same category as, TV shows.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Living room and TV is a big area of focus. Um, the second one I would say, which might kind of surprise you, is sports. You are seeing now a lot of the big, Amazon has, the NFL,
Thursday Night Football, yeah.
Thursday Night Football. Apple, I think, has some deals with MLB and Major League Soccer. I actually worked on the first sports broadcast on YouTube. We did MLB Game of the Week in 2019, where YouTube would broadcast a live baseball game on YouTube for free. And now they have the NFL Sunday Ticket, which is a huge package
Yeah.
for them. There are other things that are being explored. So like sports, everyone loves sports. Um, it draws a huge audience. It draws a real-time audience, which is very compelling and lucrative for advertisers. So I think YouTube is continuing to invest in, live sports and also just sports as a vertical is going to be a focus. And then the third one probably won't be a surprise to you. AI, this is, I feel like well, at least in the health and fitness space, I feel like, and you tell me, because have many more years of experience here, the two hottest buzzwords, their letters, they are AI and GLP-1s. I feel like these are the two
Yeah,
things
yeah.
I hear from everybody. YouTube is not going to get into the GLP-1 space. I could tell you that. Um, but AI is a big area of focus, and I would actually encourage everyone to watch the Google, or at least part of the Google I/O presentation, which happened in May. So every year, Google does a kind of a big conference and show on here all of the kind of like amazing products and technology that is being built. There is a portion of that video or that presentation that they cover Flow, which is a generative media tool. And within it's basically they build a Hollywood quality film through text prompts, and it's kind of they have an editing
Oh,
tool
I see, yeah.
in a matter of minutes with text prompts, with music, with sound, with everything. And we are getting to the point where it's going to be hard to distinguish between um, really like real people film footage, I don't know what you call that, and
Yeah,
AI
yeah.
footage. And so, YouTube, given that it is owned by Google, and again, this is just the way all the tech platforms are moving,
Yeah.
is going to be investing in, and Neil Mohan, the CEO, talks a lot about this. He sees AI as a creative tool that will unlock a lot more creativity. And so you don't need, um, 10, videographers and a whole studio to make an amazing film. That's going to be just like the mobile phone became kind of like a supercomputer in our pocket.
Yeah.
AI in some instances, it's going to be like a super studio in your pocket that you can create super high quality content, in your bedroom with, without any of the, the magic of Hollywood.
Yeah. I think you're hitting on something is I think a lot of pros are now, at least of the pros that I talk to, are using AI and things like ChatGPT as like assistants, almost like
Yes.
virtual
Yeah.
assistants. So like for for me, like for my YouTube, I will like I don't do well with making titles and stuff just in my own brain.
Yes.
I'm like I will literally ask ChatGPT or put in the transcript of the episode and said, make me an SEO rich title, and
Yeah.
it comes up with tons of amazing stuff that
Yeah.
it would take me a long time to think of to do.
Yeah. You are hitting the nail on the head. I tell this to all of my clients. If you are not using AI in your workflow, or to your point, as an assistant or as a helper in 2025, you are falling behind. So
Yeah.
everything from, um, ideation to scripting, packaging, coming up with, titles and thumbnails. We're even at a point where, at least even within YouTube, there's a product called Dream Screen where you can generate, I think it's up to 7 or 10 seconds of AI B-roll. So like even, within the video creation part, you can use AI to help you, make your videos more engaging. And yeah, I'm behind the curve on AI. Like I mostly use it for writing. I'm like, please make this better. And my prompts
Yeah.
aren't even that good. And I've learned from some people that are much smarter than me, like kind of the ways to do prompting. And there's some really great prompt frameworks that I've come across.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so I think I can just speak from personal experience. I'm just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
I think that's a great first step. And then, there are advanced ways to use AI where you can get output that is really phenomenal and way ahead of maybe the way you or I are using it at a surface level.
Yeah. Yeah. I should really enjoy it. I know there's some backlash and stuff, but I just think like time is really important to me.
Yeah,
And the currency of time is, everyone's distracted and they're so busy. But if I could cut down, so a good example, when I first started podcasting, I mean, it would take me 3 or 4 days to get one episode out. I mean, I'd have
yeah,
to try 5 or 6 different platforms to do all the editing and all that. And over
yeah,
the years, the increase in AI has changed workflows so much that, yes, and you mentioned like, oh, we're doing Riverside, and now I got to Riverside. I could technically put this out within a half an hour, fully
yeah.
baked after it's
Crazy.
done. Insane. Like everything done, all edited, the
Yeah,
microphone, afterwards. And so I could actually pump out more podcasts if I wanted to. I
yeah,
actually do a lot less than I used to, but it makes it a lot more enjoyable to do podcasts because the thing that most people hate about podcasts is the post production, is all the editing. But when it does
yeah.
it for you, it's like, and you look at it and go, oh, I would change this, I would do that. I mean, it's the future. I mean, we're not going to stop it. I think how you use it, I think, is really important.
100%. And what everyone says in this space is this is the worst that it will ever be, and it will keep getting better. I mean, there's again when people talk about kind of the video generation part of I think it was 2 or 3 years ago there was this famous video. It's called Will Smith eating spaghetti. I don't know if you've seen
Yeah,
this.
I'm seeing it.
And it was
Yeah.
like, his hands were janky. You could totally tell it was an AI
Yeah.
created video. Then like a year after that, it was like pretty close, and you could tell kind of some minor things. And I think at this point the models didn't have sound yet. And then they showed it, I don't know, a couple of months ago. And I don't know. I mean, I guess someone cynical would be like, oh, I can tell that's AI. But if you
Yeah.
put, Will Smith eating spaghetti, a real video, and the AI one, it's really hard to tell. And you're talking about a 2 to 3 year time period. So give it a few more years, and I don't know where things are going to be.
Yeah. I mean, imagine, a decade, 2 decades. I mean, it could be mind blowing. Actually, when I actually like to ask a lot of questions of ChatGPT and stuff because I'm
Yeah.
curious. I'm like, oh, the other day I was like, what will humanity be like 200 years from now? And like that type of stuff is mind blowing because it's looking at the trajectory of things and it's like, I could see that being the case. Like YouTube 20 years from now, what's 40 years of YouTube like? Could be like, like,
Yeah. I mean, and even in the health space, and this is my passion. I know it's your passion as
yeah,
well. You have
sure.
people like a Brian Johnson who's saying we are potentially nearing a point, and I know he's a very polarizing figure, nearing a
Mhm.
point where, we are not going to, people may not die, or you can do things to stop your speed of aging, reverse your speed of aging. You know, I got my three wearables on. I got my Aura, my Whoop, and my Garmin. So I'm a big wearables and a data guy.
Too.
I love doing the fundamentals. And there are definitely ways where technology can help you track better, can help give you better awareness, because health is hard, and any ways that technology can make it easier for people and help with adherence and all these things, I think is a net positive.
I think so too. Man, thank you for giving me some of your time, David. I want to make sure I respect your time. You're busy, like all of us, but just the fact that you decided to come on and chat with me, I hope it was enjoyable. And you're really awesome. You're so easy to talk to.
Thanks, Darian. I appreciate coming on the podcast. And yeah, it's great chatting with you, and I'm excited to see what else we'll do together.
Yeah, I would love that. And anything you want to add? I know you have your company, which I'm sure you're very proud of, and just anything you want people to know about it, any way to connect with you, please let them know.
Yeah, so my company is Structure Creation Consulting. I tell everyone I'm not a creative person. I have no creative bones in my body, but I'm a structure creator. That is my, superpower. But look, this is purpose and passion for me. As I tell everyone, so my mom is a nutritionist. She's been in nutrition policy and education for half a century. She also recently turned 75, and she still bikes cross country. So she's a big inspiration for
Amazing.
me. So, health is wealth. And so mostly what I am doing with this company is helping put messages of health, mindfulness, fitness, wellness on YouTube, which is the most important platform in the world. And I'm working, I more care about my clients. I'm working with some amazing people in the mindfulness space, the Pilates space, the personal training space, the mental health space. So that's what I love doing, is just like helping simplify health, because, people get overwhelmed with how much information there is. We think about cardio and lifting and bone health and or like all of the things. And so I'm just trying to help simplify this stuff and promote people that are fantastic in this space.
I love that, man. Thank you for doing that. I totally appreciate that. Our industry thanks you for highlighting and working with folks. This is, I mean, health is to me the most important thing, and it's and seeing that in our lifespan, what Brian Johnson says, I think we're a ways off of that, just knowing the science behind it. However, that doesn't mean it's not going to happen at some point. But what we have currently now is we really have to be very cognizant of our well-being on all phases, and you're contributing to that. So that's amazing. Thank you, David. Appreciate
Thanks.
it.
Yeah, and this is just the beginning. I've been in this, this space for about 3.5 months, and I, would love to work with everybody and anybody. And so, whoever's out there, if you want to do some good stuff, let's do it together.
Thanks, David. Appreciate you, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.